My name is Sarah. I am 38 years old, and I live in River Hill, a small town with peaceful surroundings and green trees. Life in River Hill was calm, with winding streets and cozy homes that felt like a true sanctuary. I grew up here, and everything about this place gave me a sense of tranquility. Before I met Daniel, my life was simple, yet filled with love. I had a small, happy family. My mother was a gentle woman, always taking care of the household chores, preparing delicious meals for us. My father was a carpenter, and he would bring home beautiful wooden items from his shop, creating a warm and inviting home. I had a younger brother named Max, and we grew up together, sharing a bond of love and support. Life, though simple, was complete. I felt loved and cherished by my family, and everything seemed perfect. When I was 23, I met Daniel. He was 28 years old and worked for a bank in a nearby city. We met at a wedding party hosted by a mutual friend. Daniel was a man with a warm smile, gentle eyes, and a kind heart. From the very beginning, I felt safe with him. He was gentle, caring, and always made me feel special. The early days of our relationship were simple, but filled with joy. He was thoughtful, and unlike many others, he always made sure I felt important. We fell in love in the simplest way, but it was real and pure. After a year of dating, Daniel proposed to me on a beautiful evening. He took me to a small garden, adorned with blooming flowers and soft lights. He knelt down and asked a question that I will never forget. "Sarah, will you spend the rest of your life with me?" His question was gentle, yet profound. I didn't hesitate for a second before nodding and saying, "Yes, I will." We got married in a small ceremony at a wooden church near the lake. There were no grand decorations or complicated rituals, just us, surrounded by our close family and friends. That day, I felt as though our love was eternal. I dreamed of a future filled with happiness, where Daniel and I would build our lives together. As years passed, Daniel and I settled into our life together. We bought a small house near the park, where the children could play and we could spend afternoons together. It was cozy, with large windows that let in the sunlight and a small garden where we grew flowers and vegetables. Our life, for the most part, was good. We had our 2 children, Noah, our firstborn, and Emma, our sweet girl who followed shortly after. Life was busy with school runs, homework, and family dinners, but it was fulfilling. In the early years of our marriage, Daniel was attentive and loving. He would come home from work and surprise me with flowers or a special dinner, just because. Sundays were our family days. We spent the day together, walking in the park, having picnics by the lake, and eating ice cream with the children. Life felt full of joy and warmth. I thought our love was unshakable, something that would withstand any challenge life threw at us. But slowly, things began to change. At first, I didn't notice it. Daniel's work at the bank started to become more demanding, and he began coming home later and later. I told myself that it was just a phase, that he was just busy. But as time went on, his behavior shifted. He grew distant. There were days when I could barely catch his attention. He stopped asking about my day, stopped talking to me like he used to. The warmth in his eyes began to fade, replaced by tiredness and, sometimes, frustration. I remember one evening, after a long day of work and taking care of the children, I asked Daniel, "Is everything okay? You seem different lately." He simply replied, "I'm fine, don't worry about me." But I could see it in his eyes, he wasn't fine. He was withdrawing from me, from our family. As his distance grew, so did my loneliness. I was spending more and more time with the children, but I longed for the man I had married. The man who used to bring me flowers, who laughed with me, who shared his dreams with me. It was as if the man I had once known was slipping away, and I was helpless to stop it. Then, one evening, everything changed. I was putting Daniel's coat away, and as I reached into the pocket, I found a receipt for a hotel room 2 hours away from our home. The name on the bill was not Daniel's, but a name I didn't recognize. Mr. D, Taylor, and Miss Clara. My heart dropped into my stomach. My mind raced with confusion and fear. Who was Clara? What was Daniel doing at a hotel with someone else? I waited for Daniel to come home, my hands shaking as I held the receipt. When he walked in the door, I immediately confronted him. "Who is Clara?" I asked, my voice trembling. Daniel paused, his face draining of color for a moment before he answered, "She's just a coworker. It was a work trip, nothing more." His words were hollow. I didn't believe him, but I didn't know how to react. I wanted to scream, to demand the truth. But instead, I nodded and said nothing. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to destroy our family. At that moment, I made a decision to stay quiet, hoping that things would change. But deep down, I knew things had already changed. Our marriage, which once felt so solid, was now built on cracks. The days that followed were filled with an overwhelming sense of emptiness. Daniel continued to work late, and when he did come home, he was either angry or silent. He stopped looking at me the way he used to. There were no more compliments, no more affection, no more "I love you." We were living in the same house, but we were strangers to each other. I began to go through the motions of daily life, but it didn't feel real anymore. I still cooked dinner, helped Noah with his schoolwork, and did the laundry, but nothing felt right. I felt invisible in my own home. I missed Daniel's smile, his warmth. I missed being seen. One day, while I was at the market, I ran into Mark, an old friend from school. I hadn't seen him in years, but the moment I saw him, a strange sense of relief washed over me. Mark smiled at me, and for the first time in months, I felt like I wasn't invisible. We talked briefly, just about small things, how life had been, where we had been. It was nothing significant, but his kindness touched me. He didn't ask questions or push for answers. He just listened, and for that, I was grateful. After that encounter, we started meeting more often. At first, it was just casual, simple conversations about books, the weather, or life in general. But with Mark, I felt alive again. I laughed, I felt seen, and I realized how much I had been missing this simple human connection. But when Daniel found out about my friendship with Mark, he became angry. He questioned me, demanding to know who Mark was and why we were spending time together. "Are you seeing someone?" he asked one night. I looked at him and said, "I just needed someone to talk to. You weren't there for me." After that conversation, something shifted in Daniel. He seemed to recognize the emptiness in our relationship, and for the first time in a long while, he made an effort to change. He started coming home earlier. He helped with the kids and even asked if I wanted tea. A small gesture, but one that felt significant. He even helped Noah with his homework and showed interest in Emma's singing. These small acts of kindness were signs that he was trying, but my heart was still guarded. Could I trust him again? Could I open myself to him after everything that had happened? One Sunday afternoon, Daniel asked if I wanted to take a walk with him. Just the two of us. It had been years since we had done anything like that. I agreed, and we walked along the lake, watching the ducks and the people riding their bikes. Daniel looked at me and said, "I miss this. I miss us." I didn't know how to respond. The old Saratha, one who was in love with him, who dreamed of a future together, was buried somewhere deep inside me. But for the first time in a long while, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel resentful. I just felt tired. Tired of the pain, tired of the past. We talked quietly, walking side by side, hand in hand. For the first time in years, Daniel seemed sincere. He wasn't asking for forgiveness, but he was showing me that he wanted to try. And in that moment, I realized something. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild. After our walk, things slowly started to change. Daniel came home earlier and helped more around the house. He even apologized for not seeing me, for taking me for granted. But forgiveness wasn't easy. Every time I looked at him, I remembered the pain, the loneliness, the betrayal. Still, I tried. I tried to trust him again, little by little. One evening, as we sat together, Daniel gave me a small gift necklace with a simple heart pendant. "This is not to say I'm sorry," he said, "but to say thank you for not giving up on me." I held the necklace in my hand, unsure of what to say. He had changed, but could I really believe in him again? Could I love him again? The days that followed were filled with small steps forward. Daniel continued to make an effort, and I tried to open myself up to him. Our relationship wasn't perfect, and it wasn't easy, but we were trying. We started rebuilding, one conversation at a time, one shared moment at a time, and for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. As time passed, Daniel continued to try. He helped more around the house, assisted with the children's schoolwork, and even began showing genuine interest in the small moments of my day. His gestures weren't grand, they didn't need to be, but they were real, and that made all the difference. He didn't expect anything in return. He didn't rush me or pressure me to forgive him. But every time he helped with the dishes or folded the laundry, I saw a new side of him. It wasn't the man I had once known, but it was someone who wanted to be better, who cared enough to make an effort. It was as if he was saying, "I see you now. I see your pain, and I'm sorry for causing it." For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. Hope that maybe we could rebuild, not the way it was before, but something new, something different. Still, my heart wasn't ready to fully open. There were nights when I lay awake, remembering the pain of the past. I couldn't erase the hurt, the betrayal, but I was trying to move forward, trying to trust again, even if it felt like walking on fragile ground. Forgiveness wasn't easy. There were nights when the old memories crept back into my mind, and I would feel the weight of everything Daniel had done. The nights he came home late, the silence between us, the lies he had told. I would ask myself, can I forgive him? Can I truly let go of the past and start fresh? Some days I could feel the anger bubbling up again, threatening to swallow me whole. But other days, the kindness Daniel showed would break through the walls I had built around myself. On those days, I would look at him and feel a flicker of warmth. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way to move forward. It wasn't a quick process. It took time, patience, and understanding. There were still days when I questioned everything, when I wondered if I was making a mistake by trying to rebuild our life. But deep down, I knew that I needed peace, not just for him, but for me. One evening, we went for a walk near the lake. It was a beautiful evening, the sun just starting to set, casting a golden glow over the water. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of calm. Daniel held my hand, and we walked together in silence. The world felt quiet, and for a moment, everything felt right. We talked about the past, about our mistakes, and about the future. Daniel said, "I miss us. I miss the way things were. I miss how we used to be. I didn't say anything at first, but deep down, I understood. I missed us too. I missed the love we shared, the connection we once had. And for the first time in a long time, I realized that maybe we could have that again. Not in the same way, but in a new way. One built on understanding, patience, and respect. When we got home, things started to feel different. Daniel continued to make efforts, big and small. He helped me with the kids, he spent time with them, and he even started to ask about my day. He no longer stayed late at work. He would come home and be present with the family. And while it wasn't perfect, it was enough. Enough for me to start believing that maybe we could be happy again. The kids noticed the changes too. Emma started singing more, her voice filling the house with joy. Noah began to spend more time with Daniel, playing games and talking to him. It was small progress, but it was progress, and that was all I could ask for. Still, there were times when my heart ached with uncertainty. The wounds of the past were still there, and I couldn't forget them. Every time Daniel tried to be affectionate, I would pull back, unsure if it was genuine. Every time he looked at me with those soft eyes, I would wonder, is this the real him? Or is he just saying what I want to hear? But one day, I looked at him and saw something different. He wasn't asking for forgiveness anymore. He wasn't asking for anything. He was simply trying to be a better man, for himself and for me. And for the first time, I realized that maybe forgiveness wasn't about forgetting the past. Maybe it was about accepting it, learning from it, and choosing to move forward, even if it was hard. The turning point came one day when we had a long conversation about our future. We sat together on the porch, the evening sun casting a warm glow over everything. Daniel looked at me, his eyes filled with sincerity, and said, "I know I hurt you. I don't expect you to forget, but I want to make it right. I want to try, and I need you to know that." And for the first time in a long while, I believed him. Not because of his words, but because of his actions. He had shown me that he was willing to change, to put in the effort, and to rebuild our relationship from the ground up. The days that followed were a slow, steady climb. We didn't have all the answers, and we didn't have a perfect life, but we were rebuilding. One day at a time, one conversation at a time, one small gesture at a time. And with each passing day, I started to believe in the possibility of healing. We didn't rush things. We didn't expect perfection. We just took things one step at a time, and that was enough. For the first time in years, I felt like we were truly moving forward. One evening, after a long day, Daniel surprised me with a dinner by the river. It was just the two of us, sitting under the stars, talking about everything and nothing. As we sat there, I realized that we had come a long way. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real. It was built on honesty, trust, and effort. And for the first time, I felt truly at peace. I knew that life would still have its challenges, that there would be more bumps in the road. But I also knew that we could handle them together. Not because we were perfect, but because we were trying. And sometimes, that was enough. As time passed, our life began to settle into a new rhythm. We were rebuilding, one day at a time. Daniel continued to make an effort, and I continued to try to open my heart. The past was still there, but it didn't control us anymore. We were moving forward, together. And though we had been through so much, we were still standing. Not because we were perfect, but because we had learned to love again, slowly and carefully. We had learned that love wasn't just about grand gestures or fairy tales. It was about respect, care, and effort. And in the end, that was enough. As time passed, I began to realize that healing wasn't an immediate transformation, it was a slow, gradual process. Some days felt like I was taking steps forward, and others felt like I was slipping back into the same old doubts and fears. But through it all, I knew I couldn't go back. The past had its place, but I wasn't going to live there. I had too much to look forward to. I had two beautiful children who depended on me, a partner who was working hard to make things right, and most importantly, I had myself to rebuild. I started to understand that healing didn't mean forgetting. It didn't mean erasing the pain. It meant learning how to live with it, how to carry it with grace, and how to use it as a foundation for the person I was becoming. The more I accepted my past, the more freedom I felt to move forward. The more I spoke about my pain, the more I realized how much I had silenced myself over the years. I had spent so many years trying to be the perfect wife and mother, trying to hold everything together while silently suffering. But I had started to find my voice again. It wasn't loud or angry. It was soft and steady, but it was mine. One afternoon, I had an unexpected moment of clarity. I was at the market, shopping for groceries. A woman came up to me and smiled. We had never met before, but somehow she felt familiar. She told me that she had heard about the changes in my family and that she admired my strength. In that moment, I realized something important. I wasn't alone in this. There were others out there who had struggled, who had healed, who were still walking the same path I was on. That realization made me feel less isolated. As much as the grand gestures from Daniel meant something, it was the small, quiet moments that truly began to heal me. There was one evening when Daniel cooked dinner, something he hadn't done in years, and we sat down at the table, just the four of us. Noah told jokes, Emma sang her little songs, and for a moment, I allowed myself to believe that life could be simple and joyful again. We were no longer a family fractured by secrets and pain. We were learning to reconnect, piece by piece, with each small action. I noticed something in Daniel that I hadn't seen in a long time, a gentleness that had once been there, buried under layers of regret and stress. When he made tea for me one evening and asked about my day, I realized how much I had missed being cared for. These moments, although small, were like rays of sunlight breaking through the clouds that had long overshadowed my heart. One of the most important lessons I had learned was that rebuilding trust wasn't about erasing the past. It wasn't about pretending that things had never happened. It was about moving forward while carrying the lessons of the past with us. Daniel wasn't asking me to forget what had happened. He wasn't asking me to pretend like he hadn't hurt me. What he was asking for was a chance to prove that he could be better. And for the first time, I was willing to give him that chance. It wasn't a fairy tale. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. We were real people, with flaws and regrets and hopes. But as long as we were both trying, there was hope. As I worked to heal with Daniel, I realized that self-love was an essential part of this journey. For so long, I had put my family's needs ahead of my own, neglecting my own heart. But in order to love them fully, I had to love myself first. This was something I had forgotten during the difficult years of our marriage. I had forgotten how to care for the woman I was outside of being a wife and mother. I began to take small steps for myself, going for walks, reading books, and even journaling my thoughts and emotions. These small acts of self-care made a huge difference. I wasn't just rebuilding my family, I was rebuilding myself. One day, as I sat in my room with a cup of tea, I realized something important. I had forgiven myself. I wasn't perfect, but I was trying. I wasn't healed, but I was on the path, and that was enough. The past was part of me, but it didn't have to define me. I also realized that I had the power to shape my own future. It didn't matter how long it took to heal, as long as I kept moving forward, one step at a time. I no longer needed to carry the weight of regret. I had my children, I had Daniel's efforts to rebuild, and I had a life full of potential. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would still be struggles and challenges, but I knew I could face them. I had faced the hardest parts already. I had survived. And that was something worth celebrating. As the days turned into weeks, I started to see the fruits of our efforts. Our home felt warmer, not just in temperature, but in spirit. Daniel was there, present and engaged. The kids were growing, and Emma's songs filled the house once more. Noah, though still quiet at times, began to open up to his father. We had our moments of laughter, our moments of peace. And yes, there were moments of doubt too, but they were becoming fewer. One Sunday, Daniel surprised me with a picnic by the lake. It was the kind of gesture I had longed for, but never expected. We sat on a blanket, the sun shining down on us, the kids running around and playing. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in the moment, fully present, not worrying about the past or the future. It was a small moment, but it was a step forward. The truth was, I had loved Daniel for 18 years. And those years had been filled with highs and lows, with love and pain. But the most important lesson I had learned was that love was not perfect. It wasn't just about the good times. It was about the commitment to rebuild when things fell apart, the willingness to be vulnerable and open, even when it was hard. As I sat with Daniel by the lake, watching the kids play and laughing at their antics, I realized that I was no longer trapped by my past. I was free. I was free to choose how to move forward, to choose how to love again. And that was the greatest gift I could give myself, my family, and my future. We didn't have to go back to who we were. We could build something new, something stronger, something that was built on trust, love, and respect. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, we could be happy again.